In Ecclesiastes chapters 1 and 2 tonight. And in case anyone has to leave early or passes before I even begin my sermon, let me give you the answer to all the problems you just heard. Right? Well, I have to be the greatest teacher that I just give you the answer before we even start the lesson. Turn with me to the very end of the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 13. You said, well, what are we doing here? You know, Solomon's saying all of this, and I'm a little depressed. What's the answer? I work with my hands. I have wisdom. I try to follow after pleasures of the flesh. What's the answer? Where is there not vanity in this life? And here it is. Ecclesiastes 12, verse 13 and 14. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. Right there. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Not a whisper of vanity there. That fearing God is where we find our purpose, our pleasure, our identity in. So now let's get back into the beginning of this book. There's a very important word you maybe heard as I was reading. It starts with a va and ends with an anity. Right? It's a vanity. What is this word? And why are we just saying it over and over again? And who is this person that seems like they just need a hug? Right? Who's writing this that just is, oh man. Yeah, guess who's not getting invited to the party? Well, actually, we should have a lot of respect for the person that has written this. You see there, right in the beginning of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 1, we have the identity of who's writing. It says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. And then you may be caught throughout the writing this idea that he is the greatest king in Jerusalem. There's never been a greater king. And we should understand that this is King Solomon writing this poetry. And most likely, this is near the very end of Solomon's life. So instead of looking at this and going, this guy is depressing, he's grumpy, what we should look at and say, this is a man that, in all earthly standards, has had everything. He's had it all. And he is now speaking and giving wisdom for the next generation. I think of my own grandfather. I loved my grandfather. He passed a few years ago. But I respected him. He was the man that I went to church with growing up. And I loved his wisdom. And while he never graduated high school, he was just a plumber. Not just a plumber. It was a great trade. But, you know, by the earthly and worldly standards, he was just a good old blue-collar country boy from North Carolina. But man, I respected him so much. And he always had these stories, and he always had information and just wisdom to give to me. And I don't know about you, but when I was 16, 17, 18, I'm 35, I have it all figured out. Right? Anyone else 16 and had the world figured out? Yeah, and when that old man in his rocking chair was trying to tell me what to do, I just would kind of scoff it off. This was the same man. Let me just tell you, I love my grandfather, my mom's dad, but he only had 9 fingers. All right, and we loved that as a kid, that he could only count to 9.5 was the joke. Because he stuck his hand in a snowblower. Like, you work with your hands, man. You know how to, and actually, him and his neighbor did it in the same week. They both lost their fingers. So you go, well, wait, what kind of wisdom do you have for me, old man? You stuck your hand in a snowblower. But can we recognize that with age comes a lot of wisdom, often from the failures and the trials and the hardships of life? And us young people, you know, me included, us young people, let me get away from Pastor Matt here. Right, we think we have it all figured out. But friends, may we see the wisdom of our senior here. May we see the wisdom of the man that had it all and now he's trying to speak some truth into our lives. And instead of thinking, oh, he's just grumpy, he's a miserable old man, he's a grouch, he's probably telling kids to get off his yard. No, actually what he's trying to do is he's saying, I followed after all of these things that I thought I would find my purpose and meaning and value in life. And now I'm on my deathbed, and my wisdom has no meaning to me. Now I'm on my deathbed, and all the joy and fun I had in my 20s will not keep me alive forever. Now that I'm on my deathbed, my obedience to the law and my righteous living will not give me another breath in my lungs. As I'm on my deathbed, all the hard work that I did will be passed and gone to the next generation. And he's trying to say this can't be what life is all about. It can't be about what we do. It can't be about the wisdom we had. It can't be about the worldly things. There must be something greater. That's why he uses this word vanity. In verse 2 we see, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanities of vanities, all is vanity. Now, when we hear that in our American idea, we do get a wrong understanding of it. We think it's kind of self-focused or it's a real negative term. And when we do that, we say, oh, this is negative. So when he's talking about the vanity of wisdom, he's telling us we shouldn't seek wisdom. When he's talking about the vanity of enjoying life, that means we shouldn't enjoy life. But that's not what the wise old man is telling us here. This term vanity is, in Hebrew, and especially in this context, is used in a sense of a breath or a vapor. I love waking up in the morning and there's a mist throughout the valley. I grew up in a valley and we'd wake up and there's just a mist throughout it and the fog was thick. But by 9, 10 o'clock, the sun comes up. Where does that mist go? No one knows, right? The weather is a mystery to us all. Where does it go? It goes away. You know, kids, next time you see the fog, try to grab a handful of fog. Vince, you can do it too. I can see you doing it. Grab a handful of fog and take it into your bedroom and look at it. Will it be there? No. So when we hear this language of vanity, you think about your breath. Breathe out if no one's directly in front of you. Your breath is gone. It's gone. The mist, the vapor is gone. So what the wise old man is telling us here, the preacher in Ecclesiastes, is all these things that he's talking about will be gone one day. Like your breath, like the fog, like the vapor, it'll all be gone. And what he's trying to drive home is that if you are seeking to find your meaning in life, your purpose, your identity in any of these things, you will die, and so will these things. Your purpose, your meaning cannot be found in these. It doesn't matter how calloused your hands are, one day you will die. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are, one day you will die. And that's what he's trying to draw out here. And friends, we need this reminder. We need this type of sober language that awakens us and makes us think about the world around us. And especially you young folk. I'm not going to put an age cap on that. You need to recognize the meaning of life cannot be in your education, your career, your retirement fund, your vacation plans. All those things are good. But your purpose and identity and meaning of life cannot be rooted in those things because they are all vanity. I love the language that he starts off with in this first section. Chapter 1, verses 1 through 11. He's using nature and he's trying to draw out this understanding that these things that we put so much a focus on really don't last forever. He uses the wind. In verse 6, the wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on the circuits the wind returns. We live in Jarrettsville. We know about the wind. It's insane how windy it's in this town. right? But the wind just goes, and then it goes away. And then when it's really hot days, we beg for the wind, and then it blows in, and we have no idea where the wind comes from. Verse 7. Look at verse 7. I love this. All the streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. You ever think about that? The mighty Mississippi. We crossed the mighty Mississippi a few weeks ago going to Louisiana. Massive river. Flowing for years and years and years. Yet the Gulf of America is not overflowing. Right? The oceans are about where they've always been. Yet there's more water coming down the mighty Mississippi. I don't know where it comes from. Once again, no one understands the weather. We can't say where it comes from. But this idea of like, oh, it's all going to run out. It's all over. Just look at the oceans. Look at the seas. Look at the rivers. God has blessed us with his creation to remind us of these things, that we are not the center and focal point of this story. And when we pass, all of creation will continue on. The last piece here in verse 11, it says, there is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. We do live in a time and a generation where we have a lot of information about the past. And I'm sure some of you have done your family trees and genealogies. It's a lot of fun to do. And you start to study it and look at it, and it just becomes fun. But in the grand scheme of things, does anyone know, who was the first person to invent the nail? Right? Anyone know that name? I feel like there's an Evans that could probably just randomly shout out that piece of fact. No, right? But are nails important? Have you used a nail in your life? Have you seen a nail in your life? But no one knows the creator of the nail. It's just past and gone. That's what happens as history and time moves on. And this can really cause us to become depressed, does it not? And that's why we must remember what he ends with, the end of the matter. All has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So I want us to look at 4 areas that Solomon examines where he has, in his own life, he has sought to find his purpose and meaning from. And then he's going to show how they have failed him and that they are vanity. You've already heard me say them a few times. There's 4 areas that we'll look at tonight, is wisdom, pleasures, righteous living, and working hard. I'll say those again. Wisdom. You'll see that in chapter 1, verses 12 through 18. Pleasures, that's in chapter 2, 1 through 11. Righteous living, that's chapter 2, verses 12 through 17. And then working hard, that's in chapter 2, verses 18 through 26. Now, in this language, just remember he's writing in a poetic way, so sometimes the thoughts are overlapping and flowing together. So these categories aren't perfect in the sections, but just understand he's drawing out a few pieces of his life that he has sought his identity in, his purpose, his meaning, and they have failed him. And he'll do this a few different times throughout the book of Ecclesiastes. But let's look at the first one, wisdom. Wisdom. Right there in verse 12 of chapter 1, it says, I, the preacher, have been king over Israel in Jerusalem, and I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. We're not going to be able to unpack every single verse in these 2 chapters, but is anyone familiar with just how wise Solomon is? Is anyone going to dare to say he is a fool and an unintelligent person? No. He had the wisdom of the world. You can look in 1 Kings chapter 3. He was the most wise. He prayed for wisdom, and the Lord blessed him with wisdom. And that wisdom wasn't just something he kept up in his head, but he used to rule the nation that God put him over. And we see in 1 Kings, he makes judications on law cases very wisely. We see that pagan and foreign nations come to him because of all the wisdom he has, to seek what knowledge he has, to understand how a man could know such things. He knew about the gardens and about plants. He probably could explain the weather, even though I cannot. But he had all the wisdom. But here he says in verse 13, "And I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under the heaven." And what happens here? It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and striving after wind. And then jump down to verse 18. It says, "For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow." I think verse 18 helps us understand the problem of wisdom, of knowledge. As we learn more, as we grow in our knowledge, especially our knowledge of the human being and the knowledge of God, what happens? Let's just start with the knowledge of the human being. What happens as you understand man more? You start to see the depravity of man even more. You start to understand. Let's say you want to be really cool and study political theory. Oh, you're about to see some of the worst of society, right? You start to see just the systems and the fighting that has to happen for the political system to function. So sure, you know a lot. You've grown in your wisdom. You've grown in your knowledge. But now you're grieved by what you know. What about doctors? Some of the most intelligent people probably in our society is doctors. What happens as they start to study the human body more? Well, then some of the brightest of the doctors are those that are doing cancer research. What happens when we examine the body in great depths and we start to study cancer because they want to fix the problem that is killing so many people, is they start to see that there is a disease of death that will be upon all people. That here's the doctor that spent tens upon tens of years studying the human body, how to heal it, how to make it better, but they cannot solve this problem of death. Can't you just imagine how that would grieve you if you were a doctor? Right? You just are grieved by this reality. Nurses, I know some of you are nurses, and you have this. Like, you have this desire and this knowledge to care and help for people. But you can't save everyone. People still die. So this knowledge is greater, yet death is still happening and the pain is there. But even that, I want us to hold on to this reality that none of these things give us eternal life. Think of the smartest person. I'm going to go Albert Einstein just to show that's the only scientist I know. It's fair. I don't know any other. Matt, you couldn't name four more. Where's Albert Einstein today? Where's his body? It's in the grave. Probably one of the brightest minds maybe to ever exist, at least within the scientific world, dead. What should that tell us, friends? You can study. You can spend the rest of your day reading books, going to school, taking exams, and in the end, you will perish like everyone else. It's a vanity. It's chasing after wind. If your sole purpose, if you are striving to get an identity, a meaning for your life, a purpose for your life, in gaining in wisdom, Solomon tells you it is vanity. Because Solomon tells us, the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Your identity cannot be found in wisdom. He continues on. So we have the first category, wisdom. The second category is pleasures. The joy of the flesh. What will bring me the joy in the moment? We see this in chapter 2, verse 1 through 11. Now, Solomon, you're talking my language now. Right, yeah, Solomon, you weren't talking to me when we were chasing after wisdom, but we're chasing after pleasures. Now we're talking. This is where we can find our identity, right? This is where we can find meaning in life. And what happens, we see Solomon lay this out in verse 1. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourselves, but behold, this all is vanity. Verse 3 says, I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, how my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. Verses 9 and 10. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me, and whatever my eyes desired I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasures, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it. And behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. I think this is one of the clearest parts of Ecclesiastes that show that Solomon is talking to a younger generation, right? Let's be honest. In our younger generations, we are just chasing after anything that appeases and pleases the flesh. You can make your own list of what you chased after. I'll make my list and keep it a secret from you as well. Right? Because we all are chasing something to bring us pleasure. We're chasing something that just brings us joy. What's going to make me happy? Is it a girl that I'm dating? Is it all the monies and all the riches of the world? Is it that I can just get my bank account, if I can just get my vacation planned out? If I can just have the best buffet, the best meal. I saw the Italian eyes pop up, right? Just give me all the food, all the sweets. Just make me happy in this moment. What happens if you eat a dozen donuts? You get sick, correct, Jordan? What happens after you've taken a week-long vacation? It's over with. You go back to life. What happens if every day you got up and did exactly whatever your flesh desired? What will happen at the end of your life? You're going to die. We see this temptation, and we're all guilty of it, that if I just chase after what fulfills me and makes me feel good in the moment, that's where my purpose is laid. And we must remember who's speaking to us. This is King Solomon. It'd be one thing if the beggar on the street corner in Jerusalem that never had a shekel in his pocket, never had a full meal in his belly, is sitting there saying, oh, all that food and all that wine and all that joy in life is vanity. You'd be like, thanks, dude, but you never experienced it. No, that's not what's happening here. The man that has had it all is speaking to us. This is that language of the grandfather that is sharing the wisdom to us that we need to hear. He's had it all. He's experienced it all. I think of Samson in Judges 13 through 16. He wasn't lacking much, especially not in the ladies' department. He wasn't lacking strength. He wasn't lacking having all the pleasures of the world. What happened to Samson at the end of his life? He died blind, miserable, rebelling. He had it all. All the pleasures were there, but they were meaningless. They're vanity. We can't find our purpose, meaning, and identity in our wisdom. We can't find a purpose, meaning, and identity in the pleasures of this life. So where can we find it? The end of Ecclesiastes, the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Wisdom's good. Pleasure's good. but they can't be your identity. This brings us to the third category that Solomon lays out for us, and this is what I've titled righteous living. I want to be very cautious here. Because righteous living, we see at the very end, he says, fear God and keep his commandments. Righteous living is a good thing. It's a good thing. But if your identity is based off of your obedience to the law, what's going to happen? You're going to fail. You're going to break the law. And you're going to die. We see this righteous living coming up in chapter 2, verses 12 through 17. Verse 13, he says, then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, as there is more gain in light than in darkness. So I believe right here what Solomon is saying is there's more gain in righteous living. That's that language of wisdom and versus folly, and that language of light versus darkness. So he's saying it's actually good to live a righteous life. It's good to do that. So what he's doing is he has all the wisdom, he has all the pleasures, they haven't fulfilled him. Maybe if he just starts to be the good church boy, if he just starts to be obedient, that's where his identity will be rooted in, and his meaning in life will be that he's just a morally good person. Right? I am very guilty of this. This now speaks to me even more than the pleasures did. This was my identity as a young man. I was taught, you just be a good moral person. You better be a better to society, right? And that's pretty much your meaning in life. That was just what I was taught over time. And I found so much of my purpose in that. Okay, I'm not going to misbehave at school. I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm trying not to get pulled over by the police. And that was just where my purpose and identity were at. But then you get pulled over. Then you get a bad grade. Then you realize that you can't be perfect, and you fail at times, and now you start to crumble. And that's what Solomon's laying out here. Verse 16, he says, for all of the wise as of the fool, there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten, how the wise dies just like the fool. Well, no, Anthony, my identity is based on the reality that I go to church, I tithe, and no one at church has ever heard me cuss because I only do that at night when I stub my toe. Right? No one at church knows the inner thoughts I have. If you ask anyone at church, who am I? Who's Anthony? Well, he's that really good, nice guy. He would never hurt anyone. He would never steal. He's a good guy. But guess what? Some of you will come to my funeral one day, hopefully. You're invited to come. Okay. You will be. Maybe in glory, but you will be, John. But we see, right, that we all die. This all ends. I look at Matthew 23 and how Jesus talks to the Pharisees. Who is the most righteous, here are the scare quotes, the most righteous, law-abiding people in the day of Jesus? The Pharisees. They were great on paper. If you ask the commoner who's the most righteous in Jerusalem, they're going to point to the Pharisees. What does Jesus say to the Pharisees, the righteous men, in Matthew 23? Woe to you. Over and over again. Woe to you. Woe to you. Why? It's because no one is perfect and no one obeys the law perfectly. So if you're trying to find your identity, purpose, and meaning in obeying the law of God and being a good person and never breaking the law, I'll give you 24 hours and you come back and tell me how that worked. It fails. There's destruction there. So what's the solution? Ecclesiastes 12:13, the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Wisdom Can't be our identity. It's good for us, but it can't be our identity. Pleasures of life. We shouldn't abstain from them. They're good to have, but that can't be our identity. Righteous living. That's a good thing God has told us to do. But it can't be our identity, our purpose, and our meaning in life. Solomon then goes to working hard. Americans, you listening? Working hard. Do we find our identity, our purpose and meaning in working hard? And some of you are going, no. But it is an American thing that when you get together with someone you don't know, you talk about the weather for about 30 seconds, and then you ask, what do you do? That's unique to the American culture. That's not a common thing. The Italians get very insulted by that. It's because they don't really work. They like to take breaks for long periods of time. Germans don't say that because they don't talk to you. That's part of just the cold culture. Amen to that. That's what we're talking about. But no, this is a very American thing, and I want to hit us hard here. Because so many of us find our identity, purpose, and meaning in life in working with our hands, building something, maybe physical or just theoretical, a business, a culture, working hard, pouring out all we have into our careers and our businesses. And guess what happens to us all? We die. What happens to the home you build, the industry and the business you've created? You die, it gets handed down to the next generation. Right? And then new technology comes, and it's gone. Right? Any kids looking to grow up to be a manure scooper in New York City for all the horse carriages? No, because they invented the car. It's gone. That'd be a cool job, though. But no. Right? These industries, these people worked hard their whole lives doing a business, a career, a job, and then they died. They passed maybe that business down to their children, their children's children, and maybe the business is gone. It's changed. The industry's just changed. They work hard their whole lives. They pour out from 3 in the morning to 10 at night. They never interact with their families, but they've worked hard. They've provided for their kids everything they have. Then the moment they get to retire at 65, they have a big party and celebration, and then the next morning they wake up dead in their bed. They worked hard, yet they're dead. They built a business, yet they're dead. Our identity can't be wrapped up and found in the work of our hands. Look with me in chapter 2. Verse 22 and 23. What has a man from all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils beneath the sun? For all his days are full of sorrow, and his works is a vexation. Even in the night his heart does not rest. This also is vanity. This should grip us, friends. If your identity is wrapped up in your work, you're probably laying in your bed frustrated with your work. Am I right? You're worried about a report. You're worried about getting your project accomplished. You got to make sure everything's done on time. And here, Solomon says the actual work of his hand makes his days full of sorrow, and it makes his work a vexation, a frustration. God didn't create work as a bad thing. It's a good thing. But what happens when we find our identity in our work, in the work of our hand, and then we get frustrated with it, now we think God has punished us because he's given us a career to provide for ourselves. And now we're getting ulcers in our stomachs because we're staying up at night being anxious. Now we're losing sleep over it because we're worried about the report. Now we can't interact with our kids and our wives because we are just worried that we won't make ends meet. And I, as a man in America's identity, is rooted in my job. And if I fail this, I fail as a man. Solomon tells us that's a vanity. Your job will disappear one day when you die, when you become old and fragile. the work that you've accomplished, the fields that you've planted, the businesses you've built, will not enter glory with you. It's vanity. The work of our hands is vanity. But he promises the answer to this vanity is the end of the matter. All has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. I've been very intentional. I want this, the end of Ecclesiastes, to be what you remember out of this poetry book. Because so often, I bet if I asked one of the youngest people in here, what's this book all about? You would have said it's about vanity. Vanity of vanity, vanity of vanity. He says it over and over again. But that's not the purpose of the book. Solomon's saying wisdom's vanity, pleasure's vanity, righteous living's vanity, working hard is vanity, so that we look for the solution. Where's my identity? Where's my purpose? Where's my meaning in life going to be based in? It has to be based right here in the fear of God and keeping his commandments. Friends, if you leave with anything tonight, that's what I want you to hear. Your purpose and your meaning and the identity you have in your life is to fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. I do care, like kids, I want you to grow up to be smart and to be rich and to take care of me. But your identity can't be there. You must be rooted in the fear of the Lord and keeping his commandments. That's your duty as a person. Go and enjoy life. We should have great pleasures in what we eat, right? We really should. We should enjoy the food. We should enjoy the blessings of God's creation. We should enjoy vacations. We should enjoy retirement. We should enjoy the friends and the family God has given us. But our identity can't be there. Your duty, the whole duty of man, is to fear God and obey his commandments. When we do that, we enjoy those things so much better. When we fear God and obey his commandments, we have so much more wisdom. Live a righteous life. Live obedient to the law of God. But the only way we can do that truly and to have purpose and meaning in our life and to have the whole duty of man is to fear God and then keep his commandments. You can't keep his commandments without fearing the Lord. You know why? It's because the fear of the Lord is a commandment. You worship him. So we can't keep his commandments without fearing the Lord. And lastly, work hard. Please hear me. Kids, do not go home and say, Pastor Anthony said I'm not supposed to work hard. It's vanity, Mom. My room's going to be a mess. That's not what I said. But your purpose and identity cannot be based on how hard you work. God has blessed us with labor. He's blessed us with work. But that's not the whole duty of man. The whole duty of man is to fear God and keep his commandments. Friends, when we have the right order in our lives, the fear of God and keeping his commandments, we will flourish and grow in all those other places. And then, while our lives are short in the totality of history, right? Our time here on this earth is rather short compared to all of history. It will be fulfilling to us. And as we enter into glory, in verse 14 at the end of Ecclesiastes, it says, For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. As we fear God and keep his commandments, as we grow in wisdom, we enjoy the pleasures of this life, we live righteous lives, we work hard with our hands, as we enter into glory, enter into his presence, he will not look at what we've done as vanity and worthless. He will look at it as good and valuable. And in that, we will worship God. And we will see that the meaning of this life wasn't in those things, but God blessed us with those. The meaning of this life was the fear of the Lord and walking in obedience. So friends, let me challenge us as we study Ecclesiastes to always have our mind on eternity. Solomon will say that next chapter is that we always have our mind on eternity. That we're thinking about glory. We're thinking about the eternal. And that will keep us in the here and now in perspective and have a better understanding of how we should live. But as we weave through life's challenges and the sorrows of life, may we always keep our eyes on the glory of God, the fear of the Lord, and rightly see that our only hope, the only way of rightly fearing God, the only right way of following His commandments is that Christ has come and fulfilled the law, that Christ has died on the cross, and when He was buried in the grave, raised from the dead, He sits at the right hand of the Father, and when we have faith in Him, the fear of the Lord is within us, and we enjoy life in a whole new way. Your purpose, meaning, and identity are found in Him. Let us go before Him in prayer. God, we thank You. We thank You that in our broken folly, in the short time we have on this earth, You have loved us. You have saved us and redeemed us, and You have given us an eternal hope in Christ. Lord, I ask that You give us minds to understand who You are. Give us eyes to fear You and obey You rightly. Give us a heart that loves You and seeks all that You have for us. Lord, I ask that as we leave tonight, that we love You more, we love one another more, that we walk in obedience as You have commanded us, that we see this life as a blessing from You, and we seek You in all things. We pray this in the name of Christ. Amen.